Hello, everyone. I'm back with another message from Gwyn ap Nuith. Today, he would, after giving us some homework on introspection the other day, today he would like to us to consider how to have humility on our current path. And again, it's another lesson of how we view or how we interact with other people in our world. Um, So I've made some notes in my notebook. I've written down the message that he gave me this morning. Lots of messages have been coming in the last week or so. Lots of synchronicities that have been about humility. And one of the lessons of the Virgo eclipse can be about humility because the two sides of Virgo are service, being humble, being nurturing, putting others before yourself. And the shadow side of that is that action of service being performative or arrogant. Um, and there's been a lot of synchronicities coming up in my world about that, about wider lessons that we can take from that. And then when Gwyn came through with his message today, it was very much along those lines. So I thought, let's put it all together and have a little talk about it. So I'm going to get my notebook so that I can make sure that I've got his message right. I've got you balanced on my bed at the moment, and there's dogs on the bed as well. So if you start wobbling around or this enormous hairy thing appears, that's the dog. Um, so Gwyn said this morning to be proud and humble. He wants us to learn how to be proud and humble at the same time, not prideful, but proud of ourselves and also have humility. And he said that this is a very difficult thing to achieve on your path and to be mindful and watchful that you don't fall too far either side of the line you're trying to walk between the two on your spiritual path, on your awakening path, on your learning path, on your evolving your soul path. Gwyn said, I was humbled, meaning him. He was talking about himself. He said, I was humbled. We have all both learned. He was talking about Arthur Pendragon as well. So Gwyn ap Nuith said that he was humbled during his lifetime. He specifically was talking about the one with Arthur Pendragon, where Arthur sort of cursed him to fight for all time for against Gwythia for the love of Craethalath. But he said, we have all and both, meaning he and Arthur, have learned. He called pride or pridefulness Arthur's folly. So again, as he's mentioned before, he's talking about Arthur Pendragon being, yes, being this heroic figure and this brave, almost foolhardy to the level extent of being brave figure and kind and generous to his people, but not necessarily to others. But he specifically calls pride Arthur's folly. And so when he's talking about even people we see as great heroes having weaknesses of being prideful and needing to be more humble. But he's also saying that it's something that he and Arthur, since then, in their work with us over all that time, over the last 1500 years or thereabouts, have learned through us to be more humble. So it's a like a mutual exchange, and that they're helping us learn, and we are helping them develop as well, which I thought was really interesting. Gwyn talked about expectancy versus expectation being another key element of your personal development, with regards to understanding the balance between pride and humility. Um, it's about keeping that excitement and innocence in your journey that never makes you feel like the master, you know? Even the masters are still learning from us, um, as they're learning from their apprentices, sort of thing, or their devotees, or whatever, in whatever religion. And he's saying a true master is one that doesn't see themselves as such. Um, which I thought was really lovely. And that in itself is humility, isn't it? You know, recognizing that the whole journey is learning. You don't reach a destination where you don't need to learn anymore, or you haven't got work to do to keep looking at yourself. So I thought that was a lovely message. And he was talking about, from a spiritual point of view, about learning the difference between pilgrimage and inspection, or performative inspection. So, again, it is how authentic, how humble are you being about your spiritual acts, however large or small? Are they performative? Are you simply going to some places and taking part in some activities purely to say you have, or to tick a box in your development, rather than it being a calling, as something that your soul needs? Because he was sort of saying that just going through the motions of following what people are saying and ticking the boxes is not going to develop your soul, because that's not what your soul needs. Every soul journey is different, to enlightenment or to ascension, or to just to develop yourself as a more rounded soul. And he was saying to be mindful, and I guess this comes into pridefulness as well, to be mindful of it being a tick box exercise, basically. Um, which is it was a synchronicity for me, because last night I had a dream where I was at the White Spring in Glastonbury, which is a place that I find deeply sacred. And I had gone there to immerse myself in the waters, as I like to do. And when I went in, it was the normal White Spring, and it was all dark and sacred, and like the womb of creation, the void, all possibilities, a very silent, sacred place. And I immersed myself in the water, including my face. So I had my face in the water. And when I took my head out of the water again, it had been all converted, apart from the pool. It had been all converted into what looked like a modern restaurant, like strip lighting, plastic tables and chairs, and all sitting all around was men in shirts and smart trousers, with like short cropped hair, like really neat, smart, not awakened people at all. And they were all just sort of staring at me like, what are you doing? Um, and I think it spoke to me of the attempted commercialization of spirituality, of inauthenticness, of sorry, that's the dog moving moving the camera. It spoke to me of also uh, being strong in who you are and your own beliefs, even if you're the only one. I was the only one in that dream who had any sense of sacredness of place, and they were all staring at me. You know, I could have, in my dream, I could have styled it out. I could have transformed myself into one of them. I could have, done, not owned it. But in my dream, I fully owned the fact that I was standing there, having immersed myself in the water, that I was having a sacred experience, and they were all in this kind of commercial, superficial, harshly lit, inauthentically dressed. They were all dressed the same. And I chose to carry on with what I was doing, carry on in my sacred experience, and then walk out with my head held high, albeit with some sadness that it had been commercialized in that sense. And, this is what Gwyn is talking to us about, being proud of who we are, but also of not allowing ourselves to become sanctimonious in that. And it was interesting to how his message this morning really fitted with the dream that I'd had last night as well. So, and then Gwyn gave me a message. So I will read that to you now. So Gwyn said, I don't know if I can read it there. I can read it down here. Um, Now you are being seen for what you are. I previously asked you, all of you, who are you? Now you must own that. The time of division is upon us. The light shines onto your very essence, the core of who you are. You cannot hide. You may have to search for the sacred in these times. You may have to feel more deeply to find it amongst the debris. You will feel your difference now. Will you stand in it without shame? This is the test. You have been prepared. Beware of greed and the greedy ones. You must be willing to stand with pride in who you are in that moment of testing. Not who you have been, not who you want to be, but who you unashamedly are. You will be witnessed. You must be comfortable with that to continue on this path. You will be seen. Be proud, but not prideful. Be humble, but sovereign. This is strength. This was my strength. This is my strength. I saw through the glitter. Now so must you. Fool's gold, fool's errand. Sacredness is not sterile. Birth is not clean. The tumult is upon you, but stand as a tree in the wind. Bend, but do not break. Adapt and survive, but do not lose yourselves. This is of utmost importance. And that's the end of his message. And then he said separately, so he'd sort of ended that portion. And then there was a pause, and he showed me lots of distractions happening. And he said, effort will be made to take you away from your essence. And then he said, the meek shall inherit the earth. And he showed me the scene from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where he's doing the the three tests of the Holy Grail at the end. The the holy tests of the kind of protection of the sacred, the Holy Grail. Um, and it specifically showed me the bit that is referred to as the penitent man. Okay. And so he showed me the part where Indiana Jones is reading the clues of how to get through the tests to access the Holy Grail. And the clue is only the penitent man shall pass. Okay? I don't know if you're familiar with the film, you'll know exactly the part that I mean. And then Indiana Jones has to work out what this means. And he says, the penitent man, the penitent man. And then he says, what does the penitent man do? The penitent man kneels before God. And in doing so, Indiana Jones falls to his knees and he avoids a swinging knife that comes that would have taken off his head. And he avoids the blade. And then Gwyn ap Nuith said, humility before strength. Beware overconfidence. This is not just about humility, but about authenticity and ancestry. And then he specifically showed me that in that scene, Indiana Jones was not just enacting what the penitent man had done, he was reading the clues from his father's diary. So Gwyn was talking about learning the lessons of your ancestors, but learning what we have taught ourselves and what our ancestry brings to us, and using that to pass the tests that are to come. And then he played me over, over and over again in my head a song called Heathens by Aurora, right? It's a good song, but I never put too much thought into what it was about particularly. Um, so anyway, I looked more into the lyrics and also what she had said that it was about. And so this is obviously Gwyn likes to communicate with messages, but also images and things like this. So he showed me the penitent man, learning from his ancestry, learning from his knowledge and using it to save himself on a holy quest, right? Then he played me this song. And when I looked up what this song was about, it is a feminist anthem, it says, for celebrating freedom, self-discovery, and the defiance of societal constraints, which was exactly what he was saying about being, what did he say? He said to be authentically, I can't even remember what Gwen said, to be unashamedly and authentically yourself, didn't he? In the tests to come, not to deny yourself effectively. Um, and Aurora had written this song inspired by Eve taking the forbidden fruit, the knowledge. Um, and it acts as a tribute to women throughout history who have been deemed evil or outsiders for exercising free will and encouraging living in all its colours. And then Gwyn said, embrace inner strength and live without judgment. So he's saying to us now that now is the time to an effort is going to be made to distract us from who we are. And we will be tested on in a moment about how authentic we are in our sacredness, our pilgrimage, our beliefs, that we aren't being disingenuous. We aren't using our soul development as a tick box exercise and thinking that that's enough. But we won't be tested on what we've done in the past. We won't be tested on our aspirations. It will literally be in the present. So to make sure that you're not being prideful, to be humble and not arrogant in the moment, but also to be have enough pride and authenticity to fully own your inner identity if you are tested. Um, so that's Gwyn's lesson of today. It feels like he's giving us lessons and homework and stuff at the moment. It's like a teacher, um, like a school teacher. It's very funny. He obviously thinks that something important is coming up where this is going to be really vital because there was this definite sense of not urgency as such, but importance and weight he was putting in this message today. So I hope that spoke to you and you get something from what Gwyn was teaching us this morning, and I'll see you again soon.